Hello, wealth hackers. Welcome to the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. This is Erwin, of course, and I'm losing count of how many of these COVID-19 urgent episodes we are doing. Hopefully, by the time you're listening to this, this is all blown over. Unlikely. These are historic times. And as such, we are doubling our podcast volume right now. So we're doing 2 episodes per week. Sorry if you don't like hearing from me. And appreciate all, again, thank you for everyone who sends in the feedback. Appreciate all the messages, all the DMs, really kind words. It is, again, I don't say it enough, but it is an honor to be able to share with all you listeners and all the fans of the show ways that you can improve your life through what we call wealth hacking, which is primarily investing in real estate, and stock hacking, which is a lot of stocky instruments. Anyways, so where are we? So this episode was recorded April 2nd. So like everything, it's a moving target right now. I've even seen rumblings of government packages for students and commercial tenants. Nothing firm yet. That wasn't announced yet. But we will make sure to update you all when we all know. So and before we move on with the show, just quick announcement. Hopefully, when you listen to this, the opportunity still hasn't passed yet. But the all new Stock Hacker Academy 2.0, which is an introductory course, it is for beginners. It is in partnership with best-selling author Lee Lowell, the godfather of stock hacking and best-selling author of Get Rich with Options. He'll be helping us out teach this to all willing wealth hackers on how to maximize returns on investments after the stock market has crashed. It's already crashing. My opinion is it's going to keep going down. But, I've been waiting 12 years for this opportunity that will present itself in probably just a few more weeks, where we will hit the bottom of the stock market. And Cherry and I want you all to be able to benefit from the same opportunity. So be strategic and take advantage of this once in a cycle opportunity. No different than 12 years ago. We all wish we bought more real estate. And it's going to be the same as going to be true for the stock market. The stock market is actually correcting a lot more than the real estate market is, at least at this time. Again, the last correction was 12 years ago, and this one is likely supposed to be a better opportunity because much of the smart money thinks this will be the Great Depression. Market will go down a lot, so then the opportunity for the market to rebound will be even higher. Will be even higher than the last correction. So for full details, go to www.stockhackeracademy.ca/special offer. Note that the discounting pricing ends April 23rd. So again, last time, stockhackeracademy.ca/special offer. So this episode is with my friends Ping and Andrew of Spotted Property Management in Hamilton, Ontario. They are good guys, and they're here to share how they're handling managing tenants across their 600 to 800 door portfolio. They have a unique perspective as well, as they do manage quite a few student rentals. And also for, there's a lot of you young listeners who have... you have other young friends who think that real estate investors are awful people, and that people like Andrew and Ping are just ruthless landlords, and just hear them out. They're very kind. They treat their tenants with a lot of respect, and they're getting a lot of respect back. And you'll know what I mean when you listen to the episode. The letter that they sent out to their tenants is also on the show notes, so you can find it on our website at www.truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca. And for those of you who are the clever ones who've already subscribed to our email newsletter, we would already sent you an email with this episode and a link to that exact same letter, so you don't have to go looking for it. And if you're not already on an email list, well, that's just silly. All you need to do is to make sure to get these episodes and resources that we're sharing. Simply go to that same website, www.truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca, and enter your name and email on the right side. So again, I proudly present to you Ping and Andrew from Spotted Properties. What's keeping you guys busy these days?
Tenants. Yeah.
Has incoming flow of inquiries increased a lot over usual? Like, it's only April too. It's not even May 1st.
Well, like inquiries for inquiries for property management increased a little bit. I think now that nobody wants to leave their home, a lot of people are asking for service. But with maintenance requests, it's declined a little bit. People don't seem to want us going into their homes, which kind of is good, obviously. And yeah, leasing has taken a bit of a hit because people are very, very reluctant to let people into their homes for showing. So
Mhm.
it's both for so vacant properties is not as bad, but even those we're trying to be really careful about them. So
What's the mix of your? So tell the listener a bit about your business.
tell us a little bit about your business. Ping, do you want to tell a little bit about the business?
For the property management or real estate?
Both. Let's start with the property management.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, on the property management side of things, we're basically doing like the whole full service property management. So like, honestly, we feel like because we're Hamilton based, we're almost like a mix between a maintenance company and property management. Because in Hamilton, like there's like a pretty heavy requirement for properties that tend to have like a little bit of issues. A lot of older buildings, none of them are always being like upgraded. So people have. It seems like the management requirements a little bit higher. So we have to have like a very strong maintenance department, and so we feel like half the time our business is collecting rents, doing showings to properties, communicating remittance, and all that other standard stuff for property management. And then the other bulk of it is like we're coordinating maintenance like all the time. So it seems like we're a bit of both right now.
And what's the mix of your client portfolio? Like, because I know you guys are well known for student rentals, for example.
Yeah. Okay. So like about it. Yeah.
No, 40%.
Yeah, it fluctuates like around 50 generally, but it's like we've thought of almost separating into two, east and west, but pretty much west would be McMaster and student rentals, and like east would be everything else. But it's generally fluctuating around 50%. I think right now we're about 40. And a lot of like multi-residential, and then there's student rentals, but different requirements, and also a lot of different seasonal work. Like we just passed our big student rental rush, but the move-ins are coming in. The leasing just finished.
Mm-hmm,
So we just lined everything up. But come end of April, it's like we usually have move-ins with like students that are lining up out the door, like out around the corner of the block just to like pick up keys and everything. So it gets pretty crazy.
And usually after that, we start doing a lot of renovation for the multi-residentials, right? Like the apartments unit, and also a lot of people start moving during the summer.
Yeah.
So let's stick on the student rental for now before we move on to regular rentals. So what's did you already lease out everything before what hit the fan?
Oh, we still have some vacancy, but not a lot. So I think right now it's about like 30 something rooms, including that residence.
Yeah, so like, okay, so there's different types. So we have about like 30, okay, to put into perspective, we were renting out, I think like maybe 300 to 350 rooms this year. Out of that, we have 30, which, is about normal for us to have anyway. But part of that is also because of everything that happened. There's people are not as inclined to stick around for some of the residences. So we had like a few extra people just decide that they wanted to break their lease and leave, right? And while they might not be allowed to do that, we still have to be proactive and try to fill it. So we have 30 places that we still need to fill, and it's definitely going to be a challenge if it is possible. But to be honest, actually, with the student rentals, a lot of our clients got pretty lucky because this whole thing happened and everybody was concerned about April rent, right? But a lot of our turnaround is for April. April applies last month's rent. So they're technically paid up, and we've already collected deposits for May. So again, they're pretty secure, most of them.
Yeah,
right? So
I love student rentals because I have a couple. No issues so far, except I do have one room. I need one more room filled for May. If you have somebody.
No, basement rooms or above room?
I think it is a basement room. Okay, but it has 2 windows.
2 windows. Okay, that's rare.
It's brand new renovated, but that's for a conversation for another time.
It's interesting. If you are actually looking for people like that, one of the things that we found that's always kind of interesting is that early, like you do the student rental January and February, right? But like in January, we found that it's almost all girls that are looking. And then come February, there's a lot more guys and fewer girls. And so now we have like the odd girl that's like looking for a place, and it's hard to find her a female only home.
Right. Oh, actually, mine's a female only home. I think
that's what I was going to ask.
Primarily nursing as well.
All right.
So like I like that profile.
No, yeah. Generally, actually, it's interesting. I don't know if you find this difference, Erwin, but like we found that with the female-only homes, when it comes to leasing and showing, they actually show and lease way better. It's just tendencies, right? But like when it comes to
regular maintenance,
regular maintenance, we find that they are a little bit higher on the requests and everything. Whereas the male homes or male and co-ed homes, they tend to be lesser on the maintenance side, but they're not as like easy to show. So I don't know if you found that at all, but we've just found that to be just an interesting, consistent thing through our student leasing stuff, right?
My property is between the hospital and Westdale downtown, so I have a great location as well.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties of the student rental business. And we're recording on April 2nd. Are you hearing anything? Any pushback on May 1st move-ins or anything like that? Any challenges that you're expecting or preparing for?
People are asking, but I don't. We haven't heard anybody that wanted to back out yet, right? So, but people are having concern about the whole situation, and but obviously they're also waiting for you to see if universities are going to cancel the summer school. But I don't think we're going to know until the end of the
right.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit confusing for everybody right now because like people are just kind of feel out the situation because I know that some requests came in. Some people were saying that they might not be going to McMaster with the whole COVID-19 thing over the summer, and therefore they want to break their lease. And a lot of it is education, just having to make sure that people understand that really whatever happens to McMaster, whether they're open or closed, has nothing to do with your lease agreement. This is a separate agreement. So sometimes they just need to be explained, and usually it comes out okay after we kind of like cleared things up a little bit. But there's definitely been like people who are at least scoping out the situation because no one knows what's going on. Classes might switch to online. If that happens, why might people be wanting to stay close to campus? They could just stay home, save those summer months.
But this whole like social distancing thing on like May 1st for like move out and move in will be, oh boy.
Yeah.
Are most of your properties vacant now, you think? Like, have most people gone home?
Considering the decline of maintenance requests, I'd have to say that yes. Like we don't, we do standard like checks to the properties for like fire, smoke, and CO. But when we did it like just before all the social distancing thing, so everybody was there. But we try not to make an effort, especially during this time, to go into the properties to find out really. Generally, our measure is when people are putting in requests or communicating with us, they're usually at home. But the student rental stuff has declined considerably in terms of complaints, requests, and everything. So it's pretty minimal from what I understand.
And then you actually just mentioned a golden nugget. I shouldn't have moved on so quickly. You mentioned education that you're giving your tenants about people wanting to break leases. Can you explain what is the education that you're giving folks?
Okay, so like it's a lot of it is often case by case. Like we have been sending out these mass emails, different ones for student rentals, and there are for single families. Obviously, for the student rentals, we've been advising that pretty much saying that please remember, first of all, April. If you're terminating your lease at the end of April, please remember your last month's rent doesn't apply. We still get people paying us accidentally, and then we have to go through the trouble of reimbursing them. Within those emails, we also included this time a section that says, if you have any questions or concerns about like your upcoming May lease, please contact us. And we're not really so much trying to offer things as much as we are trying to get people to communicate any concerns, because there's such a wide range that we've been finding. It's not whether or not people just want to break their lease. Like there's other options for people, right? Like we want to really know why, because we're also not sure really like what McMaster's intending, or we're not exactly sure if people still want to stay. So we don't just want to offer out like too broad options for people to take. We want people to kind of like reach out to us. The whole thing is just to communicate, right? The main education piece that we send out is for social distancing. Make sure to don't come to the office to pay rent. Pay it online. So and then if anybody's concerned, they ask.
Actually, you bring up a great point. How do you take rent?
Pre-authorized payment or EFT on their portal.
Oh, you take oh, okay, very good. You take electronic transfer, Interact-based transfers.
Yes.
Yeah. So currently we have like three primary methods of payment. Like the fourth one is like only used in like rare situations where somebody will come in and pay in cash. But I mean, really, we try to discourage that as much as possible for an array of reasons.
Right.
One of the most basic ones is people think they brought like $500 in rent. We count it on in front of them, and then it's not. And then they're sitting there having a conversation about with you in front of you when you just counted it about whether or not they brought the correct amount. So just do away with that, right? And just get everybody to do EFT. We have like a property management portal that we use, like a platform, and basically students can log in and they can make payments by linking their bank to their portal, and basically it works like exactly like Interact, like the same way those work. And they can basically send us the payments, and then they're able to print out their own receipts. It has a lease ledger for them, and it basically shows any transactions. And on top of that, if they need any services, like sometimes they ask for cleaning, sometimes they ask for lockouts, it also shows up there for them, and they can pay it there. So it's pretty convenient for them. It consolidates them. It's easy enough for most students. They're more for it than a lot of the single family homes.
One of the nice thing about students.
Yeah, seriously.
The students get a bad rap often, but for Hamilton, it's a very good tenant profile, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's not as good as like the Toronto condo tenant profile, but again, this different city, different cash flow. What's the name of the platform that you use for your tenant portal? Is it your own? Or something
no, so we use one called Buildium. We found that it matched our processes the most.
Fantastic. No, that's a pretty popular one. And you're quite happy with it?
Yeah, actually, we've gone through so many platforms. Like actually, I remember, it's weird because property management itself, it's not a super mature industry in Canada, I don't feel. So we found ourselves going to the States to see what kind of events we can go to and what kind of supports programs and all this. And the main problem that we're finding is that almost all the platforms are American based, so the taxes just don't translate properly. So the accounting ends up getting messed up. And I think after you get to a certain volume, the main thing you're looking for is bank integration. Right? Because you want to be able to consolidate. You don't have to be doing all this data entry, and the administration just becomes like crazy and ridiculous, right? So you want to have things automated, and you want the communication to be good, and you want it to link with Canadian banks, and so on and so forth. So we tried. So far we've tried Yardi, we've tried
Yardi Breeze,
Propertyware, yeah.
I think there's a couple other ones that we tried in the very beginning of our business.
Yes, and so we've been through a lot, because they say that actually for anybody who's developing a portfolio, they say that some people ask, when should you start using a management software? And the truth is, as early as possible, because honestly, even when you have like 20 units, it's really difficult to start switching everybody off. Even if you start switching the new people, trying to get the older people onto this platform, it's like pulling teeth. It's very difficult to do. So as early as possible start. It's not too expensive either if you've got just a few units.
And there's no so electronic money transfers, where does that go? Does it go through Buildium? Because for example, like you guys are receiving probably an obscene amount of money via EMT. I believe there's caps daily, usually for like a personal account. I think it's a daily cap of 10,000.
Yes, but with this platform, consider Buildium works with another institution called, I think, Forte, like also in the States, and they obviously we have to get qualified and get approved and all that stuff, right? But once we go through the process, they don't with that specific institution, we don't have any limit.
No limit. Nice.
When I'm saying no limit, I'm talking about I think it's 15,000 or 20,000 per day per person, which the rent doesn't usually go that high unless we're dealing with commercial. Yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, for the most part, that used to be one of our biggest problems. Like, because when you're collecting and remitting, you have like all those rents that come in. You have to do all your counting, all the deductions and like additions, and then you have to now find a way to remit all those funds. We were doing it manually via like e-transfers in the beginning, and oh my god, that was like that we capped out on that really quickly, and that was people would complain about it, and they were right to do so. I mean, how quickly or how long will somebody be patient? Like if I was collecting the rents for you, how long would you be willing to wait before I sent you the money, right? And then if I tell you that I've reached my cap, it means I prioritize somebody else over you, right? So what do you do?
That's cool.
Tricky.
You guys have built a pretty good system around this. Now, staying on the topic of like younger people, do you know what programs are available to younger people if they can't make rent?
Young. Okay. Well, I mean, like what?
Students or non-students?
Either, like for example, a friend of mine, Ken Beacon, he posted how his like very specific example. His specific example was he had a house of international students, and they had plans to have jobs, but like Tim Hortons, a lot of retail stores, grocery stores, they don't need that they don't need them as for work, so they don't. I don't know if it's true, but they're saying that there's no programs available to them, let alone jobs.
Hmm. Well, I mean, okay, so the programs that are available to people in general, I mean, whether you're younger or older, are more or less the same. Like there's a lot of overlap on them, right? I mean, we always tell when people call in, the first thing if they say, for example, now, like currently, I think we have 60 people on payment plans. I don't know what percentage is student and what percentage is single family.
We don't have a lot of students calling in because simply because right now it's April, right? People who are moving out already paid. Right, people that are going to be moving in also already paid.
So for if you're being specific to younger people, I don't know how to really distinguish it too much. I mean, the responses have been very much the same. Go to EI for you, whether you're younger or older. If you happen to have like a kid or something, there's increased subsidies for, I think, like child tax credits or something. I know that they were offering something. We started linking people to that. We don't go through the process ourselves, so we don't know that, but we can basically get them on the initial starting path, right? And aside from that, like we make them aware that for people who are self-employed, that the government has been saying they're going to roll out that fund that's for self-employed people who weren't paying into EI. Right, so there's that one. I forget exactly what it's called, but we have been linking people to that. So I mean, those people are all getting the same subsidies. But but for younger people, if we're talking about student rentals, it's pretty minor. The people who have, nobody's really called in to say that they just don't have the money because they're on OSAP or they have OSAP. They have like their parents have budgeted for it or something, or there's so many more securities. So yeah, the fact you're cheering on the student rental stuff for a good reason is because they're notoriously secure.
Right. And diversified because we often have more than one of them in the property.
Yes. More often than not, yes.
I won't go down there. Are you guys willing to share your letter and I can link it in the show notes? And we can leave all your branding on it, all your contact information. Is that cool?
For sure. Yeah, sure. Of course.
Fantastic. Just send it to me afterwards. And again, we'll leave all your contact information and branding on it. And it'll be in the show notes, folks. So let's move on to like your vanilla tenant. That sounds awful. Your non-students.
Yeah.
What are you telling your landlord clients, for example, about your non-student clients?
Those are all. So these ones are the more interesting ones. I mean, it's not. You know what? Here's the thing. It's not that like. Sometimes I feel like people watching, especially if they're familiar with places like Hamilton, they might think that it's like if I say anything that like that kind of leads to there's there's issues with it. Somebody might say, I've come to expect it, but these are just working people, and to be real, there's a lot of people who are working who are having like some troubles like with the current situation, right? And that it makes sense, I think, that would be having more of an issue than student rentals, especially just during this time. Like I said, April, we happen to be on a turnover, so there's not much of an issue, right? Very minimal. I mean, technically speaking, for all if this could have happened at any point for student rentals, it's affecting it the least. So for single family homes and like multi-residential properties, people have been calling in about like wanting to defer rents. But the thing that's interesting is that there's some people who are calling in for an array of different reasons. And my favorite one is when people say, hey, can you tell me if my landlord is taking the mortgage deferral program? As if though it's relevant to whether or not you're going to pay your rent, because they're now thinking they want to make a decision. So And the thing is, I had a long conversation with this one lady who she made very rational points, but I think on a superficial level, it makes sense. If you're getting a deferral on your mortgage for 6 months, I mean, it seems almost classist that you, the big man, gets to get a deferral on your mortgage, but me, the working man, has to continue to pay rent during these hard times. Why do you get a break and I don't? Because the government halted evictions, but they didn't exactly say that you don't have to pay your rent.
Mhm.
So it's like a soft break. It's a double-edged sword, right? They didn't quite do it, but they didn't quite not do it. So it's very in between, right? They just removed the structure that holds it all together.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that we get more often than not. And honestly, but to answer the question, because I digressed, the thing we're telling all the landlords right now, whether they're in student rental or not, is try to get a little cash heavy, if possible, right? Just so you can ride this thing out. Leverage the mortgage deferral program if you can. Leverage any kind of credits available to you, LLCs, HELOCs, whatever it is. Line them up as much as possible, because you don't know what's going to happen. People were worried about April, but I actually think that the time where people are going to defer the most, right now we've collected most of the rent so far. Most of them are coming through.
Yeah.
So we actually haven't experienced much of a problem with it, interestingly.
And
What,
also,
what percentage do you think?
Over 70 right now.
Over 70 of your non-students, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also because when people are asking us about whether or not they should be paying rent, we always ask them to provide a proof that they're actually being affected, right? If they are not being affected, then it's very simple for people to prove that, right? And it's also very reasonable for us to ask. As a third-party property management, one of the good things is that we can always kind of we can always ask for those proof without sounding a little too offensive, right? Because we're just doing our job. Right.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the landlord and you're asking for all those proof, and sometimes it doesn't show enough understanding or compassion for the tenant situation.
Yeah, it's like you're challenging them, like, what, you don't think I'm affected, right? But for us, this is just policies and procedures.
Yeah, and that's why whenever people, and for those who are actually affected by the whole situation, we're offering some sort of flexibility. See what you can pay, and then we need to kind of set timeline for the second payment or third payment. In between, we kind of walk them through with all the different programs that we're aware of, and then we send them a link and see if they can actually apply for some funds. So.
No, Andrew makes a good point earlier about it's an interesting point about classes and investors being able to have a mortgage deferral. We have to pay interest on that money.
Oh no, yes. That's what I had to explain. That's the thing. This
compound
is where, like,
interest.
It's almost like there's an entire, like, there's such a big gap in, like, understanding of each side's perspective. Like, and I think, just to make sure that this is a balanced conversation, we should also talk about unreasonable landlords the same way we should talk about unreasonable tenants.
I've sat at the LTB many times, and I hate a lot of those landlords that go through there. Yeah, they're despicable human beings.
It's crazy. So I understand why, it's kind of like, I understand why, even the term landlord, sometimes it doesn't have the greatest rep, right? But I mean, it's because of these some of these people, right? But nonetheless, like, some of these people, it's not even, we got to be careful with the words. But anyway, okay, no. So here's the thing, and this is the interesting part I thought about this conversation. She was very civil about it. To be honest, I thought it was very educational for both our sides in terms of understanding perspective. Mm-hmm. So she said, I thought this was classist, yada yada yada, and I said, okay, fine. Let's run through this just really quickly. If we were to defer your rent, how long would you want to defer it for? It's like the same amount as the mortgage is being deferred. And then she said, would you want to pay interest on that money? He says, well, what kind of interest? The same as the bank, I said. And he says, what is the bank? And I said, it varies. And then he says, okay, I'd be okay to pay the same interest as whatever the bank is, because I think that's fair. I'm just like, okay, you have to qualify for this now, and you have to send me all this. Like, because not everybody qualifies. And secondly, most people's rental properties don't qualify. We've been getting mixed messages on it, but a lot of people have been saying that their banks are telling them it's only for the principal residence. Very few people have told me that they've qualified for this with their banks for their rental properties, but some people have said they have had it done. So I was surprised. I'm not really sure. Like, I think it might be, case by case maybe, or however it is. But yeah, your mortgage will ultimately go up after 6 months, because they're going to essentially take whatever you haven't paid, and they're going to stack it onto the rest of your amortized period, right? And charge you interest on it too. So, but the tenant was definitely not okay with us raising their rent after this deferral. And on top of that, the bank's okay to give the deferral because they're secured to a property. they'll take your home if that all goes south. But if I'm a tenant and I'm paying $2,000 of rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Toronto and I get a 6-month deferral that's $12,000, I might be inclined to just leave after that's all said and done. Because think about it, by the time 6 months later, let's say that's how long it takes, and the tribunal starts working again, how long will it take you to get a hearing by then? It's going to take longer. Yeah. How long will it take you to get an eviction by then? It's going to take longer. Everything's going to be congested. So by the time all that happens, I mean, like, it's just not a fair amount of security for a homeowner. There's a lot of exposure. So I feel like that's where that's where people don't understand that's what makes it not fair. But on the superficial level, if you're getting a deferral, I should get a deferral, right? Because that's all they're hearing. Because the newspapers are talking about mortgage deferrals, but they don't talk about the details that matter.
Right.
So anyway,
the most popular bank among investors is allowing three rental properties, and they may make an exception for a fourth if you're not asking for a deferral on your home. So say you have 4 mortgages with the top lender, with probably the top lender for investors. So they'll give you up to 4 for rental properties, assuming you're not asking for one on your own home.
Okay, and
it's still case by case.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is that initially I heard that it was okay, but then like I didn't apply for anything like that yet, but I know that like I only know what people have told me that they've succeeded with, right? And some people are just saying, yeah, there's no way around it, and other people are saying they got it. So
most of the banks, the less investor friendly ones, have actually been very good. It's like a phone call, answer 2 questions, 5 minutes of paperwork, and you're done.
Wow, that's like unheard of.
Yeah. It's really hit or miss. What else? Do landlords have much to be concerned right now, or you just think it's going to be wait and see?
You want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, well,
are you concerned, Ping?
I personally am not, because most of my properties are student rentals, so I'm actually okay. You should be more concerned.
Okay, I'm concerned. I've had so far maybe 30% of my tenants go on payment plans. Now I'm focused on Hamilton multi-residential, like Bayfront area, downtown, like that type of area. And I've had about 30% of people affected, understandably so, because especially in downtown.
And those are still good neighborhoods. This isn't like low-income neighborhoods necessarily.
No. It's not like they're all. But the thing is that they're all working people. And the thing is that they're not. I'm not worried that they're not going to pay. They just went on payment plans because it's taking a while to get on EI. Despite the fact that they're saying that they're waiving the waiting period, it's still apparently a huge pain to get on EI. So I have complete faith that they'll pay. But it's just now I have to, you just have to float some costs, which I think a lot of landlords should be prepared for in any case, right? I mean, you should never be riding on steam like that, or fumes like that, right?
And also, we're trying really hard to kind of minimize our current expenses for any like renovation or maintenance stuff, right? If it's not top priority, we don't do. Right, because like right now, being able to have a bit of saving in your account is actually more important, because we actually have no idea how long this is going to last. And also, you know what, it's kind of like it's for every investor, right? If you can ride through the bad times, that's where you lose money. If you can do that properly with a bit of funds to play around with, then the wave is going to push you high. So right now, for people who are a little concerned that we're talking to right now, we always tell them that, listen, try to minimize it as much as possible, because for the rent collection, you can't really control that. We're still going to do our best to collect the rent for you, but if same thing, bad situation happens to the tenants, and then to the point where we need to offer a bit of flexibility, that's what we need to do, right? But landlords also need to be prepared. Honestly, sometimes when we're talking about this, it's very one-sided when we talk to either tenants or landlords, because as if the other party is the enemy, right? And that's one thing that we always find ourselves hard to adjust, right? Because we're still talking to a family. It just happens to be someone who's renting or someone who happens to own the house.
Yeah.
Right.
They're the customer. People need to get back to like they're your customer.
Yeah,
Like how we all know how we like to be treated as customers. Just apply that now to one's own customers.
yeah. No, you know what? The truth is that this actually forces. Like one of the things is we've been telling people. Like one of the biggest things we've been telling landlords is this is a time where you really need to be realistic. Like be super realistic. There's okay. There was this one landlord who had an eviction due last Friday. Obviously, didn't have that. Whatever. Anyway, whatever. It was due towards the end of last week, and he obviously is very concerned now because that didn't happen, and this tenant is very intentionally going to ride out however long he can at this property because he has no intention. He never had any intention of paying. He never had intention of moving. He was waiting for he was waiting for us to have the sheriff escort him out. And since that didn't happen, he's going to be able to sit there for another maybe couple of months, however long this takes, maybe 3, 4, 5. You never know. And then what happens to this landlord? So does he have something to be concerned about? Yes, he really does. And it's really just bad luck. See, people can prepare for a lot of things, but I don't think a lot of people could have really had the foresight to prepare for this because you might think I'm going to float the cost of the rental property with my own job, but then you don't have their income and you don't have your own income. Now it's like you're double slammed, and your savings are going to get burned through very quickly in a situation like this. So again, what do? Well, you start to draw your credits, you start to see what kind of LLCs you have, and you try to maybe cushion things. But truthfully, someone like him, and it's not most people, cases like his are very few, but he's in a very difficult position. So yeah, somebody like him should be worried. But yeah, like I said, so far in our experience, most people are paying thankfully, but people are kind of being forced to really work with each other. One of the things that we did do, which I think actually for any landlords who are handling a lot of things themselves have very close relationships with their tenants. Some of the people who have gone on payment plans are contractors. They've been laid off and they're contractors, and they said, "Hey, I'm coming up short." We know that there's a short as who are as tenants. Yeah.
We always need work done.
No. Yeah. Okay. Yes. But the thing is that we don't have any experience with them, right? But I know that they are contractors. But here's the thing: for a lot of simple things, like around the house, we have very small maintenance things that need to be done. We try to advise landlords, if they have the opportunity to do so, use this lost income to convert that into work to your property. You'll get a better deal with the tenant.
Yeah.
You need to take the money. Offer some work out. Try to stop spending on third party and try to give money back to your tenant if possible through work if possible. And it's actually worked out pretty well. We have had a few people. We said, okay, listen, give us a bulk deal on all these little things. Do it in your free time. We don't care. And show us pictures of it when it's done, and we'll come and inspect it, and then we'll waive that much off your rent.
Or just there's tons of exterior work that could be done to properties. It's spring.
Yeah. We try to limit it to things that whenever we're concerned about liability, like no roofing work, unless you happen to be a roofer.
Right. Of course.
Nothing electrical. We're talking about carpentry, doors, maybe screens in the windows, maybe some gardening, some landscaping, things that, the exposure isn't too high in terms of a liability perspective. Mm-hmm. But, it's still good to offer that up, right?
Right. Yeah, one of my properties, the I have some fat trims, 8-inch trim around the front door, and it needs to be scraped down, sanded, and repainted. All that that takes a lot. But that's the front door. You can maintain social distancing quite easily.
That's a oil paint or whatever with those old those old style trim work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are beautiful. Definitely worth keeping.
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of manual labor.
Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned payment plan. Can you elaborate? What's a payment plan? What's it look like? How do you structure it? How do you document it?
Me or you?
I can do this one. So payment plan again, we always ask the tenants how their comfort level essentially, right? And also when the EI is coming in, because they get all those information. So and then since we're asking them to provide proof, that's when we can essentially set a time frame on the second payment and third payment with the amount, right? Because our paperwork is still being filed as part of our procedure. So when we do that, we kind of write down the details on the paper, on the M4 or whatever that we're issuing out, and then just so we have a documents to prove, right? So we're on one hand we're providing a certain flexibility. On the other hand, we're also holding the renters accountable for the conversation that we had. And obviously, the main thing is to emphasize that the importance of the communication, right? Communicate with us, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah, but again, when you're talking about the standard procedure, there's no standard procedure for this one because we're still taking case by case, right?
Mm-hmm.
The moment that you offer a bit of option to every renters, people are going to take that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that was our fear actually. So like there were a couple of managements that we saw them send out letters, just blanket saying, hey, if you have problems paying rent, let us know and we'll put you on a payment plan, no interest. The problem we have with that is that like you kind of make an offer, something like that, and then everybody takes it whether they need it or not, right? So we want people to reach out to us and say, hey, this is my problem. And they say, okay, what do you propose? And people tend to be quite reasonable. So,
good.
So far that's worked.
This is, man, I've been reading too much social media. I just read all these disaster stories. I'm sure you guys see it too.
Yeah.
No, we do get them. It's just not the majority. Like honestly, I was, because I was getting bombarded with so much of the negative social media as well, I was definitely concerned. But at the same, but now I'm like ridiculously surprised. Like so far we're on track for approximately what's normal, right? Usually 70% by the first, and then the rest of the other 25% comes like within the first week,
mm-hmm.
and then
mm-hmm.
like the 5% is delinquency. Right? So it's about normal, but except with like I said, about 60 people on payment plans, which their payment plans usually are within like a 3 to 5 month period.
Mm-hmm.
So
what would the payment plan look like over 3 to 5 months? Like are they not making their, so like they like giving you half the rent on the 15th, for example, and then
okay. So for example, so like one of the emails that I was reading over, one of the first ones, because one of our property managers was asking how would we like him to approach this, and basically she said that she just got laid off. She's in the service industry. Her husband also has had like reduced services for like he's a plumber and he does calls, and obviously like that's dropped a little bit. So he's saying they're just a little hard, and she's going on EI, but immediately she doesn't have enough like money to cover. She can pay this amount, and she had like 25% or 35%, and she said I should be able to make this much on the next time, 3 weeks in, and then when she gets on EI, she should be able to catch up on like the next month. And then she says, if this thing goes on for 2 months, then she'll be able to start picking up work again. Like I can't imagine people are just not going to be working for like 2 months. Like after 2 months, maybe they will be, but like people are kind of hoping that they won't be. So there's a lot of assumption here, but
mm-hmm.
we are letting people themselves propose a payment plan. The thing is, so that's an example of what she proposed, and that was basically 3 months. They think they should be able to get back on track, but we also are being understanding that 3 months later, if they're not on track, as long as they communicate to us, the truth is that the landlord, the homeowner, just doesn't want to feel duped. They don't want to feel cheated. Like they will understand that, hey, if the government has made any other changes still restricting these things, like we have to be understanding. It's not even do we want to be, we have to be. There's no choice. Like what are we going to do if we don't want to be understanding?
Mm-hmm.
Just going to, stomp our feet and pout, right? Like what are you going to do? Yeah. You have to, we have to work with each other. I mean,
mm-hmm.
So when people are being forthcoming, we want to, we want to be able to show that forthcomingness is well received and work something out with them.
By the way, Owen, every time we had a conversation with the tenants who are asking about a rent deferral, we always make sure we emphasize, or I should say, we always make sure that we bring in that kind of human element into the conversation, right? It's not just the landlord that needs to be understanding, the tenants also needs to be understanding with the landlord situation. Right, and what we notice that it becomes a lot more powerful, and the conversation becomes a lot more effective when we start talking about stories, right? And then because like a lot of people, when they're only talking about numbers, deferral programs, and what kind of benefits that the other party can get, they tend to be okay. Well, if you're getting that, I'm not going to do this, or if you're getting that, I should also deserve certain things from you guys, right? So we always try to like emphasize the importance to, well, one, the communication, and two, you're still dealing with human, right? You're not dealing with a big corporation. Some landlord might just be a retired like grandmother, right?
Yeah.
Who's just like sitting, who literally just has one house, and then she's simply just relying on that income, rental income from the tenant.
Yeah. No, that I think is a good point, because I think a lot of I think a lot of people who will watch your podcast, when they think of these tenants, even when we're talking about them, they probably have a picture in mind. Is like they're picturing somebody who they might be picturing people sometimes who aren't being shined in the best of light. But sometimes we deal with in the reverse spectrum, where the tenants are often looking at the person that they're paying this money to as being this monopoly looking man, kind of like big fat freaking eyeglass thing, and just taking all the money so that they can go on vacation, right? But
a monocle.
It's not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like sometimes I feel like they picture this, and they feel like it is very often we hear when we're trying to go through this negotiations, like, what is it? It's like the landlord will be fine if we don't, if they go a month without rent. It's not always true, right? People, and it's not the tenant's fault. Like, the landlord should really be budgeting for this because it's a business, but the truth is that a lot of people do find themselves suffering tremendously when it comes to things like this. Like, they put so much, they put so much of their chips into this one house, and if it doesn't work out, they take like 6, 7, 10 steps back because of like this whole thing crumbled beneath them, right? So I think a lot of the what we do is we often have to right now we've taken it upon ourselves to humanize both sides, right? And it's definitely helps people be a little bit more flexible.
But when we're talking about not people who are paying rent, we're really talking about the people who are constantly paying rent on time. For those people who are already fell behind a couple months, obviously these people were not communicating too well, because they kind of just took the chance. Since we're going into the hearing, might as well take the chance and not pay and see how much longer they can stay.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of landlords are concerned. See, that's where those negative stories on social media, I think, come in, where people are just like worried and upset, like what's going to happen. But again, there something just to like when people are thinking about should I get into real estate, those are not the majority. But you definitely don't want to fall into that fall into that timing. But yeah, no, there's people who are capitalizing on it. Like, I don't know if you've seen those those social media groups that are basically keep your rent April 1st, right, and all that stuff. I mean, the chatter on that is kind of ridiculous because they're actually mapping out a process for like how long it would take them to get kicked out if they were to get kicked out, and how you can avoid it, right? And basically how to just hoard the money. I think it's the same mentality as hoard the money just the same way you hoard the groceries or the toilet paper. Just buy it all and keep it all, and then if you don't need it, return it. Right. Actually, I think Costco stopped taking returns on toilet paper because of that. But yeah,
people were returning it.
People were returning toilet paper. No. But the people were returning. I think people were taking it. Like, I know this is off topic, but I think people were taking it, returning it, and then because they were trying to sell it when they knew that it was in shortage. So, and I knew this because like I would happen to be there, and I think we saw some people trying to return it. Like, they were arguing with the cash, and they had like a cart full of toilet paper, and it's just I bought too much, and they're trying to return the toilet paper, and the lady's just like, sorry, we're no longer taking returns on products for during this time. And I was like, I was surprised, and I don't know if that was like a specific store that was doing that, but
right.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, a lot of stores don't want to take returns right now because they don't want stores to be overcrowded or people waiting in line for that sort of stuff.
I think it has to do with I think it has to do with they probably, because it's technically in violation, I think, of the return policy, but because of the COVID-19 situation, I think it's pretty justifiable to not take returns.
That's funny because I think Costco's original purpose was to be a wholesaler for retailers. It's just people like me like to buy toilet paper by the 40 rolls, and so I buy my mayonnaise by the 2 liters.
Yeah, man, that's 2-liter, man.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But what's funny, incidentally, since we're on the topic of toilet paper, freaking like a few months ago, like before this was all coming down, one of the office managers in Ping, they got frustrated with the fact that somebody kept on forgetting to like restock the toilet paper. So they just got pissed and they ordered an entire year's worth. So we happened to be really well stocked before all this happened. So that issue never actually came up for us. But, that was when Amazon would deliver all that. So,
Any tenants complaining about lack of toilet paper?
That's not the top maintenance request, I would say.
No, yeah,
Okay.
it's not the biggest, highest priority.
Yeah, we get funny maintenance requests, to be honest.
Like?
Oh my God. Yeah. You know what was, so like sometimes we do talk about, like we have our morning meetings over Zoom as well now, right? And we'll talk with like our staff members and talk about like what's going on. And we do sometimes talk about like, interesting maintenance requests, right? And we sent out the email basically saying, hey, we're now pushing non-urgent maintenance requests for social distancing purposes. If you have a few piling up, we might send somebody depending on the urgency of them, but we're pretty much just sticking to emergency maintenance for the foreseeable future. Okay, but so the emergency lines are open, but there was a lady who actually called in and said that she had like put a bowl over a beetle in her apartment, and she said she needs somebody to come and kill it. And she said it's an emergency. This has to be done. Now, and we're not really sure, like we do try to exercise sensitivities when it comes to, people having, phobias, or people just, having, let's say, irrational fears, something. But we can't justify putting somebody, even our own staff, at risk, for something like that, right? Like it can't be justified throughout the board. So people sometimes still call in for some ridiculous things. The most common ones that are considered emergencies that aren't are internet and small things like bugs. Students, actually, you're probably aware of this, but if the internet is out, they don't care if there's a hole in the roof. If the internet is out, that is an apocalypse. This is, things have come to an end. You have to respond immediately if that's the case, right? Because, there can be all kinds of things wrong, but if the internet's out, that you cross the line.
I think my students are responsible for the internet. We don't include it anymore in any of our leases for students.
Yeah. We follow the same procedure. It's just sometimes we'll inherit a property or we'll inherit a tenancy with that in place, and we have to honor it until the lease expires.
Yeah.
Or for like a full-on residence, then you have to include it as well.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like a proper residence. So for things like that, yeah, but for the most part, we try to stay away from it.
Anything else I should be asking?
Well, why don't we talk about some of the most interesting stuff? I don't know.
The reason I brought the toilet paper thing was because the first time I ever, so a client of mine had a service issue, and this was years ago. The plumber had to go and they snake out the lines, and what they were pulling out was they're pulling paper towel out of the pipes, because the students had run out of toilet paper, so they're wiping their bums with paper towel and flushing that. So that's why I asked about toilet paper. But yeah, please go ahead. There's no investment's perfect. This hasn't happened to any of my properties, but this was a student rental where this happened, where they're using toilet paper instead. Sorry, they were using paper towel instead of toilet paper. All right, please go ahead.
Well,
do you think it's appropriate for us to share the story of that landlord, like the new clients that we recently acquired? Like he's trying to take the advantage of the system to get the tenant evicted.
Are we talking about this based off of some toilet paper story?
No. I'm talking about the one landlord, because we've been talking about how to mitigate the situation, right? And I don't know if it's appropriate for us to talk about the landlord or a landlord that wants to take the advantage of the whole system, the whole situation, and try to get it.
Before you get into that, because I think you were asking a question about if we deal with stuff with people throwing things down the toilets. I think that was
no. Go any direction you like.
Okay. Because but honestly, with that, just so you know, we have because I think this is worth mentioning. Our student rental lease is huge. There seems to be a lot of redundancies in there, but pretty much we put in everything. Anytime something stupid happens, we put it in the lease, right? So it doesn't even matter, right? It actually says no livestock in our lease, and go figure, it's because somebody had these chickens in their freaking house, right? In the house, right? And then we're just like, hey, there's no pets here, and then they argued that this is food. So
isn't that a zoning violation?
I'm sure it's a violation. That's the thing. I don't. Half the time the point isn't actually to. You don't want to necessarily have to take somebody to the tribunal to illustrate that this is a zoning violation, or have to go dig up the zoning violation. It's easier to just have it in your lease. But yeah, the point is we start to include those things. We also include that if 3 months later, if the plumbers dig up anything from there that can be shown to be the fault of the tenants, they're responsible for paying for the bill, things like that. But yeah, pretty much we always try to make those things more robust. But no, I think Ping, where the direction he was leading on was, we've talked about, some unreasonable situations from tenants, but I think there's also some landlords that have been trying to push for some relatively unreasonable action during this time, right? I don't know. So what's the story? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
Remember, this literally the conversation happened about 2 weeks ago, right? And the landlord said, you know what, if the tribunal is not going to evict the tenants.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. And no, he's not going to do anything anymore. So and on top of that, I think he's going to start handling things for himself. But anyway, okay, go for it. Or do you want me to tell it?
You had a conversation with the owner.
Okay, fine. So here's the thing. Basically, the homeowner basically called in because the eviction wasn't going to happen, right? And he was fuming, right? And this guy, he's $9,000 in the hole, right? And he works as a security guard for some penitentiary. Right, so he's just I know how to deal with these things. I don't care if the sheriff is not on duty. You tell those tenants that are not out there on their eviction date. I don't care if the sheriff's not on duty. I'll be the sheriff, and I won't be as nice, right? We're just whoa, buddy, calm down, right? But the thing is that when people are backed up against the wall, you got to be careful. They might come out swinging, right? They'll do all kinds of things. And that's the thing is my dad always used to tell me something that I really took to heart, but he's you see sometimes these landlords or property managers, and they will do things. And when you think about it, why would you do illegal things, especially for petty money, in the end, right? When you think about it, I'm not saying $9,000 of this guy's petty money, but the thing is that take a step back and look at the bigger picture, right? I know some landlords and property managers who will just go and lock people out of their homes. It's straight up illegal. Don't do that, right? You do something like that, you take away somebody's shelter, somebody's livelihood. Let's say this person has kids. People start getting crazy thoughts, and that's something that was weird with the conversation with this guy, was that he was having some relatively crazy thoughts. He was ready to drive over to Hamilton and throw this guy out. Right, so we had a conversation with him and told him that breathe, take a step back, let's see what we're doing here. Don't do anything crazy. Look at the big picture. Remember, this is an investment. This isn't supposed to be something that gets you thrown in prison, right? Because you don't want to. That's hardcore, right? You'll get in trouble. So we have people who are kind of backed into a corner, and they start having some really weird thoughts, and we're sitting there now, feeling like we're shrinks or psychologists, talking to them, trying to pacify them, saying, breathe, calm down. So, yeah. It's hard.
So we're running out of time. Did you guys start a YouTube channel or something? That was a really nice video you did, Andrew, that you were in. I don't know if maybe Ping was doing the producing. I don't know, directing, scripting, writing.
He was holding the signs, right? Just dropping them, right?
Yeah.
No, that's Andrew's a little side project. So we start documenting what we do on a daily basis, right? Things that are interesting, we kind of just pull our phone and all that stuff, and then we what one day, I think it was back in November 2019, and then he was like, why don't we start putting things together and show people exactly what we do? Because property management stuff, it's actually a little unappreciated from both landlord and tenant side, right? And then it's really important for us to we feel the need to actually show people what we're actually dealing with, right? And also a lot of real estate investors are also property managers themselves, right? So it's important to actually show people exactly what we do, how difficult it is, and how easy this can be, right?
Yeah, or how easy it can be if you do it right, and also maybe not to get too creative with things, because you essentially overcomplicate it, some things, when you do that. So yeah, basically we started documenting it. Basically anything interesting or worthwhile worth documenting that happens, we started doing that, and basically trying to make episodes of it. So we do some buy, flip, and sell projects. We started documenting that. We do like rental conversions. We film like properties that have been destroyed by some tenants, mostly because it makes for good good cinema. And other than that, we also document basically how we deal with certain bylaw issues whenever we're doing any duplexing or anything like that, or if we do happen to pick up a distressed property, what condition we picked it in. We recently did a wholesale deal where we bought a student rental that was not it wasn't listed. We didn't see it yet, so we just picked that one up, and we basically document the whole process. So that's in the works. So we're going to start releasing some of these things, because we have found that sometimes people call the office, they ask for all these questions, and then we would think about it, and we just gave a lot of very valuable information. People go to seminars and pay for this stuff, to learn this stuff, and we're just okay, we can probably deliver some of this on scale through social media. So yeah, we did just start a channel. It's called The Professional Landlord, and it's basically going to be teaching people how to be professional landlords, some of the human elements and some of the professional elements that you want to employ as a landlord, do it yourself, hands off, and also full time, if you're a property manager or something like that.
Yeah, help people to. Sorry, go
ahead. So right now, if you just YouTube The Professional Landlord on YouTube, you'll find it. We are also just putting up the website for theprofessionallandlord.ca. So I'll send you all that stuff afterwards. And and also if you just look up me, so you'll find me doing this stuff, and you'll be able to find some of the content. But yeah, it's pretty much all going to be YouTube based stuff. Instagram is going to be landlord.pro, and you just it'll have some of the teasers for some of the stuff we're doing.
And this is the main thing you want to promote. I think have we even mentioned spotted properties? I think I said it once.
No, that's only because you just asked about that, right? That's the project. But no. To be honest, the spotted properties as a property management is honestly, okay. In terms of let's promote spotted properties. No, in terms of promoting spotted properties,
forget about everything else we discussed.
No, in terms of promoting spotted properties, the truth is we do have actually pretty good organic steady growth, right? So the truth is when people sometimes whenever we get on new clients, we effectively do take on more problems, right? Because people go to a property manager the same way they go to the doctor. They don't go to the doctor when things are good. They go when they have a problem, and problems are harder to fix than they are to prevent. So if you really want to make sure that your things are on track, basically hire a property manager. It can be us, it can be anybody who's reputable, and work with that property manager to keep problems at bay and prevent them from happening, as long as they know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. Our management company currently does have over 800 tenancies under contract, so we do have a pretty full team. We have full-time maintenance staff. We have contractor licensing, so we're licensed for all kinds of maintenance, plumbing, electrical, and whatever. And the nice thing about us is that our maintenance guys, if we tell them to go there and prioritize something, we don't have to wait for some other contractor to prioritize us. We do send them there, and we have control over it. And like I said that in the beginning, that's kind of what gives us a bit of an edge, I think, when it comes to that stuff. We also have in-house paralegal, and we can basically deal with a whole array of different problems. Basically, with 800 tenancies, we do have things that we need to control, and we did find that by internalizing all these core services, we are able to operate pretty efficiently. So
very cool. Yeah. And where can people find information on spotted properties?
So our website, if you just go spottedproperties.ca, and you'll be able to find we have a pricing structure on there. We have a portal for both landlords and tenants. So basically, landlords can log in through our website. It goes to that same portal through Buildium that we're talking about. They can see in real time what's happening. So a lot of some of the biggest concerns that a lot of landlords have is, are you as a property manager going to manufacture maintenance? Because you're giving trust. This is a property, I'm collecting rents. How do I know I can trust you to not just pocket the money? And I've heard of this happening so many times. So what happens is we actually have real-time updates on our maintenance platform. If you want to know what's going on, a maintenance request comes in, landlord gets an email about it right away. He doesn't get to respond to it, but if he wants to know how we're responding to it, he just clicks in, logs in, and he can read it. And he can see pictures, updates, anything. And so it's pretty transparent. And I think it's good for, establishing grounds of trust. We find that a lot of people like to micromanage in the beginning, but usually after the first month or two, they get comfortable with it. Daily operations are just things fix the toilet flange, the faucet might be broken, or, just ordinary maintenance and repairs. But then people are wondering, how do I know, if that actually happened? Well, you'll have seen that the tenant complained about it. So Transparency is a big focus
And
point
also, we
for us.
set up a proper expectation from the very beginning. When we take on a client, we have an onboarding process where we pay a lot of attention to this specific clients and this specific property, and then we just kind of walk through all the procedures that we do on a daily basis. When it comes to like rent collection, maintenance, leasing, and everything, that we explain to them exactly how we're going to handle them. We introduce the team members to the new clients. So onboarding process is pretty solid. And if they have any questions, ask as many questions as possible, because we want the clients to feel comfortable using us.
Fabulous. All right, spottedproperties.ca. Now, and for listener, this will be in the show notes as well, including how to find the professional investor. Sorry, the professional
landlord.
Professional landlord. Sorry. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Ping, for doing this. Nice work.
Thanks for having us. Always fun.
Yeah, thanks
for sharing all the best practices on keeping our tenants happy and keeping our landlords happy. All right, stay safe. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. Have a great day, guys.
Sounds good. Take it easy.
Take care.
Bye.